So those are other aspects of the chart that I would see someone who is like trying a lot of different things. I can
Mhm.
tell you about the line 6 I can give you a brief
I feel
little
like
line
I'm
6.
on the same like trajectory. Like I've always liked the same types of things. I mean, I've been in like the law area and then healthcare and stuff and then writing and now podcasting and stuff like and stuff in between that. But I feel like a lot of it is like just being creative and stuff. So I feel like maybe I am on a line, but like a lot of different
Mhm.
things. But the thing that you were pointing out, so does everybody have the same type of
Yeah.
like look to it? Okay. So there's a
Yes.
triangle at the top, an upside down
Mhm.
triangle, then a
Mhm.
square, and then below that is the diamond, right?
There should be two. So there's the first one is your head center, then your
Okay.
ajna, then your throat, then your identity center.
Okay,
So
yes.
that
The identity center is the yellow. Okay.
okay.
Gotcha.
So yours is defined. So people with a defined, it's also called the G center, which is a weird name, but people call it the identity center too. I don't
Yeah.
know why they do. People that have that do have more of like a consistent sense of self and like who they are, but it doesn't mean that you can't try different things. I think this is where the line 6 comes in. So when you're a 6 line, you basically the first from 0 to 30, which you just entered your 30, so basically
Mhm.
up until this point in your life, your whole life is about experimenting. It's about trial and error, trying different things. So like your experience makes total sense. That's how it's supposed
Yeah,
to be.
that's
It's like
super
the
cool.
discovery
Yeah.
process of like figuring out what works, what doesn't work, what do I like, collecting experiences. The 6 line is interesting. It's different than the other profile lines because it's all the other profile lines, their themes are consistent throughout their life. You're the only one as a line 6 who it changes depending on how old you are. So 0 to 30 was like experimentation phase. Now you're just getting into the next phase, which is called being on the roof. So your 30s will be different in a good way, but
Yeah.
they will be different than your 20s and before that. Obviously, the being on the roof is basically about kind of like taking a step back. It's like literally like imagine someone sitting on the roof and looking down at the world. Kind
Right.
of, you're taking a step back. You're like reflecting on all of the experimentations and everything you've learned from
Yeah.
them. You're like healing, you're going on this inner sort of journey. A lot of people like put a lot of focus into family and stuff like that when they're around that age. And that's really where you're gonna like turn your experiences into wisdom. And then the final phase is the role model phase. The 6 is the role model, so it's like a wise sage who's lived a lot of life and has processed a lot and learned a lot, and people are meant to like look up to you. And you're basically somebody who your trajectory is to take all the stuff you've learned and really like turn it into wisdom and then live life as your full authentic self and inspire other people by doing that basically. But your 30s are going to be a lot of like processing
Hmm.
all of the stuff that you learned.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, yeah.
I feel like that resonate. I mean, my whole purpose of this podcast is to learn from all different people and better understand myself and help people do the same thing. So that's cool. Is
Mhm.
so that's the sixth line. So how many different types are there?
So there's 5 different types,
Five.
but
Okay.
then it's almost like how in astrology, your sun sign is what people usually talk about, and you have a
Right.
Pisces. But then like
Right.
me and my mom are both Pisces, but I'm a Libra moon and a Virgo rising, and she's another.
Right.
So
Right.
not all generators all are the same. Not all manifestors are the same. It
Right.
starts
Gotcha.
breaking off and getting more
Yeah.
differentiated,
Okay.
basically. But there are 5 different main types. When we're talking about profile, which is where the 6 comes from, there's
Hmm.
12 different profile combinations. So
Okay.
like I'm a 3-5. You could be a 2-4 or a 5-1. There's different ones, but it's basically a combination of lines 1 through 6. So when I'm talking about the 6, even if you're listing in your profile isn't exactly the same as Kim's is, if you have a 6 in your profile, that applies to you. So you
Okay.
can learn
Cool.
about the individual numbers of the profile and then kind of
Okay.
put them together.
Question. So the type is manifester for me. What is one more thing? Like, what would my moon sign and everything be if you're comparing it? Does that make
Yeah, I
sense?
know what you mean. Yes. Yeah, and if you don't, there's so many nuances. So if you're like, I don't quite relate to that, it's okay. The thing to know about your strategy and authority is that's basically like how do you navigate your life? It's
Okay,
almost like I don't want to call it rules, but it's like guidelines to
yeah.
follow that
Yeah.
will help you.
Yeah.
If you want to get deeper into like who am I as a person, what am I really here to do? I would look at the profile is like probably the next area
Yeah.
that's easier to understand, that just gives you
Mhm.
more information about your personality and like your learning style and how you're kind of meant to share and teach and impact others. After your profile, I probably would look at your conscious sun gate, because this is really, it's called your life's work, and it's also just like it's the most representative of like who you are and the energy that you bring into the world. So when you look at, I'm trying to explain this in a simple way without having it in front of me. When you look at the chart, you're going to see numbers on the right side and the left side. There's all these numbers going down. If you just go to the right hand side to the very top, you will see a number, that it'll have a decimal point after it. So mine is 22, point 3. I would just look at the 22. So you don't have to look at the decimal point after. Don't worry
Okay.
about that. Just look at
Mhm.
the first number. So what's yours?
Right under personality, right?
Yes, the very first number on the right hand side.
45.6, but 45.
Hmm. Oh, okay. So hers is your 45.6. Yeah. So you wouldn't look at the point six. You would just look at
Right.
the 45. Okay. I love this. So I actually have this in a prominent place in my chart too. So this one's like fresh, on my mind right now. The part that we're talking about, it's a totally other area that we haven't mentioned called gates. The gates are all the little numbers, and they're basically like, they're just more personality traits, but they're in different placements. So, all the different placements where you see the planets, they show
Mhm.
you like the area of life that personality trait really shows up. And so, your life's work or your conscious sun, this is the energy that you are bringing to the table and embodying everywhere you go, no matter. So, it's like at work, in your family, with your friends, this is like the biggest representation of who you are. I love this one. So this one is like the king or the queen energy, and it's all about bringing people together. So it's a leadership energy, but it's about this idea of hierarchy over hierarchy. So hierarchy is like, I'm ahead of you, I'm the boss, you guys listen to me. This energy is basically, it's the gift is called synergy. So it's like understanding everybody, and like you have this gift and this insight, and this kind of sounds like your podcast. You're like recognizing all these people
Yeah.
for their
Cool.
knowledge, and you're bringing people together. The name of it, one of the names or like phrases that they use is like gathering together. That's the point of this. And like you're the leader that's like kind of orchestrating everything, but it's like leadership that serves the whole. So you're doing that.
Yeah, I love that so much. Do you find that if somebody's gonna Google like what these things say, do you feel like they are pretty accurate like when you look it up? Because I feel like a lot of things are kind of different with astrology when you look it up.
Yes. Okay. So a quick thing about the gates. I'm trying not to get too confusing because if you're confused, it's so with the gates, there's also like a sister system to human design called the gene keys, and they go like even deeper into the gates. I love the gene keys. The gene keys were created by a man named Richard Rudd, who studied under Ra, who created human design. So human design came first, then gene keys, and there's a lot of like wild science behind it too that honestly goes over my head. But the gene keys are a way to I that's my favorite way of delving into the numbers, the gates,
Mhm.
because the gene keys will give you a shadow expression of the energy, and
Mhm.
then a gift, the gift of the energy, and then the something called the city, which is like the highest, most like enlightened expression of the energy. Anyway, so there are different like takes, you could say,
Right.
on a gate, and none of them are wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's just like
Mhm.
sort of
Yeah.
perspectives on them.
Right.
I can recommend a resource for looking up gates. I think she still has it available. I have a friend named Katie who's also a manifester, and she has a program called HD School. So if you want to learn how to like
Cool.
read people's charts, that's what I would recommend. I know in the past she's had a free like a Gates cheat sheet, but her handle is it's sort of spiritual with periods in between each word. So if she still has that like free resource, I would grab it.
Cool.
You
Yeah.
can also you can just Google them, and yeah, they're pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Understanding Human Design by Karen Curry is another good book too that has all the gates, and she keeps it pretty simple.
Cool.
Mhm.
And for anybody listening, again, you should know that she is just talking off the top of her head. She's very like knowledgeable. I'm like shook by how you're just like excited to talk about it too. So yeah, I mean, we'll get into your like what you offer in a little bit, but I just think it's so cool. And if anybody who's interested, like just go right to her. I mean, her Instagram or work with you, I would highly recommend. So let's like get into a little bit more about how you can use it to decide on a career path or maybe make a decision. Like when you look at your human design chart, is it more kind of a guide of what you should feel when you're doing these jobs or what specific type of job you should be doing? Like how can you use it to like make choices or decide if you're kind of on the right track or whatever?
Mm. So the first thing I would say is that this is supposed to be a tool, and it's actually supposed to be like an experiment. That's what the guy who invented it said. Like, look at this like an experiment. Don't look at this like this is a rule book I have to follow to a T. Because the thing that always
Right,
needs
right.
to come first is your intuition. The point of this is to connect you back to your intuition, but it's just a tool to do that. I will say that what I see the most is that when you look at a part of your chart that's like, yeah, this is my life's work, or there's another area called your vocation, which can be helpful when we're talking about, business and like what you get paid for and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff when people learn about it, they're like, yeah, I knew that. Like do you know what I mean? But it's really just giving you permission to do it is the thing that I
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
usually it's not like what? It's not like this big shocker, but people are like, oh, okay, this is validating this like small voice in me that like has wanted to go in this direction but has been afraid to.
Yeah.
And then the task really is to like do the work that allows you to trust yourself enough to actually follow it. That's really where like this is the fun stuff, but the hard work comes in when it's like, okay, like I want to start moving towards, being more authentic and like following this path. And that's where some uncomfortable stuff comes in. But this just does give you tools. Like if you just keep coming back to your strategy and authority and even just focusing on that, it's going to help you.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And I like that you said like validating because I think even with what you said about me, like telling people what I'm doing or whatever, like I think a lot of us need just a little bit of like, no, you're okay. Like you can make your own decisions. Like you can, it's all right. Like, and it just falls between like the confidence thing, caring what people think, like wanting to follow your heart, feeling like things are out of reach. I think all of these tools and the people I'm bringing on, like just like you, just give tools, just help you like become your best self and feel more in tune with yourself. I just love this so much. Which one is the vocation one? I know that all of these things need more context, but I'm just curious, like for anybody to take a look.
So that one is okay, so it's on the left hand side. So there's two different
Hmm.
sides.
Hmm.
Um, and basically you're going to see the same planetary placements for each one. The right hand side is your conscious side, the left hand side is your unconscious side. You don't really need to stress that much about that, except the things that are on your conscious side you're just going to be a little bit more aware of. So it's on the left hand side, and it's where your Mars is. I'm trying to think of how to explain what the Mars symbol looks like. It's like, yeah, it's the little circle, and then it's like an arrow pointing up from the circle. It's
Okay. To the
it's
right,
far,
it's pointing.
yeah, it's pointing like up and to the right. It's like
Yep. Yeah, I see it. Mine is
What is
39.